Awesome. Well, welcome to the podcast. My name is Kent Pycat Gruber, and today I'm joined with a bunch of other people.
Was that me? I was probably supposed to
Yeah,
go,
I
right?
guess.
Yeah, I'm Anthony Tibbs Tippy.
And Quantiss or Nathaniel Ferguson.
Heck yeah, we got it. We got through the introductions this time.
That's
We
right.
didn't wait till the end.
Yeah, we didn't wait
did
till the
it.
end, and I'm really happy with that. So, uh, last time we talked about B-sides mostly, and Tibbs was actually in charge of recording a lot of the B-side stuff.
Oh man,
So we wanted to have him on. We talked about him last time,
in
and
charge.
yeah, Tibbs,
Tibbs.
what do you do? Tell us
Oh.
about SITS.
Well, you said I was in charge of a recording, which is, I
Well,
mean,
that's what I
I'll
saw.
take it. Yeah, I guess that's good that I came across that way. I was just kind of spinning
It was
dials
authoritative.
and pushing knobs, but that's mostly what I do anyway. Yeah, I was volunteering at B-sides, which if you didn't get a chance to go to it, it's a really great, really great community event in Detroit. That's what is it? Every November? Is that usually when it happens?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that. But it's like usually once a year. It's like a kind of a free or very cheap conference for information security. But yeah, anyway, I was volunteering running sound there and kind of holding down the production for the second half of the day. Yeah, it was a good time.
So Tibbs, the mastermind of AV. What do you do for your job? What is that you do for your living?
Yeah, so I am an audiovisual kind of technician, engineer, whatever hat they decide to put on me. Um, and so I do a lot of audiovisual work, basically taking care of conference room equipment. So the projectors, the control processor, if there's a touch panel in the room, everything that makes sort of Skype calls or WebEx calls or Zoom room calls work, whatever the unified communications method of choice is. And then kind of everything in between there. It's really a kind of a broad spectrum line of work sometimes because you get really fancy and upscale like smart houses, like way before the kind of the Google Homes and such, where you'd actually
Sure,
have
yeah.
people, like what you'd see on like big fancy movies where they got like a big touch panel that controls all their lights and their security
Interesting.
system
Okay.
and like the projector that comes out of the ceiling, all this crazy like super expensive stuff.
Right.
That's become a lot more mainstream and much more affordable. But all that's usually controlled by a lot of times professional grade control processors and amplifiers and equipment.
Nice.
And that's what you do. Is you could pretty much set up those things. You go to people's homes or
No, yeah,
businesses.
so yeah, I don't. I'm actually more in the corporate side of things. So we take care of the conference rooms in a lot of our customers. So we do a lot of AV support on site for individuals, doing a lot of helping people with meetings and troubleshooting issues as they come up. If there's dropped calls and something's not working, HDMI cables that need to be replaced. It's a new thing every day.
Yeah, and very much needed.
Yeah.
Yes, because
So
if my WebEx call doesn't go good, that means I contact you, right?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
If all the demo gods decided to call upon me, I get to call on you.
Yeah. Right.
Well, that's cool. And then from like the security perspective, like when you're seeing all these things, like what's the security like for these kinds of products?
Yeah. So that's kind of where I sort of not made my foray into infosec, but kind of decided to kind of jump into it a little bit. And one of the areas I got a little bit more involved in, being an audiovisual person, I was interested in information security, but I didn't know how to bridge those two gaps. And the security, like you said, is really interesting for some of these, especially legacy devices. But
Sure.
even some of the newer devices, a lot of companies they're not quite up to the times of things. And so they don't necessarily have the best security practices, right? Or have just things that are maybe more common sense or commonplace in sort of 2019, coming into 2020 information security practices. And
Gotcha.
I actually wrote and gave a talk at MySec about it, and that was my first talk, which I think was pretty well received. But basically talking
Yeah.
about some of the security vulnerabilities and issues within these audiovisual systems, which are, again, like I said, are really wide. There's a wide degree of the different pieces of equipment, right? It's everything from sometimes like switchers that are very common in like traditional IT, to video switchers, to projectors, to everything that makes every piece of a conference room work, which isn't just necessarily like a projector and a cable or like a projector and a speaker. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
So like the most of these things just got like admin interfaces that don't have any passwords or something like that.
Yeah, I found a lot of really interesting um, web interfaces, and not everything has something like
Mm.
has a web interface, but the interesting thing was that some of the ones that didn't have web interfaces would be using like Telnet or
Oh, great.
just like SSH with like basic default creds, which is not really better. Or there's one that like Crestron is a big manufacturer within the AV industry, and they have their own sort of like Telnet-esque port that they use,
Huh,
which
that's
isn't necessarily
proprietary.
as you know good either. So I don't think it's as bad as Telnet, but it's also not SSH. So I don't know. It's their own proprietary sort of command and control port that they use for a lot of their services.
Yes, the good old
Interesting.
security through obscurity.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Well, then that's what a lot of these are. They're oh, nobody really knows about it. Even the AV guys don't go in here and touch this stuff. Like, I've been into more than a number of systems that have just admin as the password, or admin and nothing as the password.
Gotcha.
Um, and when you think about what they're interacting with, it's really kind of strange, because some of the companies will have like a really strong security posture, right? They have a lot of physical controls and a lot, like a lot of the standards that you see that are good for security, but then something as simple as like your audiovisual systems, like maybe the traffic isn't encrypted, or there's, like I said, just something simple like there's no password on it, and you're like, okay, CISOs and CEOs and like the C-suite is like talking into these things, potentially discussing trade secrets, um, like very very important pieces of
Yeah.
information. And if somebody were to get a hold of it, that'd be a very much a bad thing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. It's definitely an unconsidered attack surface
Right.
in many organizations for sure. Because it's not just like domain admin or something like that,
Yeah, exactly.
a little more obscure. But that's cool. That's awesome.
Well, and then if I can add on to that too,
Yeah.
a number of these devices, at the end of the day, they're just computers, right?
Right.
There was a talk that was given by a researcher, and I forget what his name is right now, but I'll have to maybe find it. You can put it in the show notes or something. But he did some research on Crestron touch panels, so little sort of iPad type touch panels that you can use to control systems.
Okay.
And he was able to get out of the Crestron sandbox into just a basic Linux kernel for this Crestron touch panel and a Crestron master controller. So essentially, it was just a Linux box,
Right. Yeah,
and he could
definitely.
do anything that you could do a Linux box on it, right?
Mm.
Um, even if it's not necessarily gleaning information or intel off of these devices, you can also even have them run in a traditional malicious information security sense. To that point, a number of the devices that I found when I was researching, I found a ton of, what was it, touch panel? I think it was, yeah. I think like 20 touch panels that were infected with a Monero miner.
Hmm.
So it was
Really?
like at a
Okay.
school, right, for like a bunch of their different classrooms and
The school
spaces.
days.
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
and a lot of schools, don't necessarily have the best maybe IT team, or just don't have the most resources. And I've heard from a number of individuals that a lot of their firewalls are lacking, to say the least.
Oh yes.
Um,
Yes.
and
Yes.
so there were like literally Monero miners, just running away on these touch panels. And if it's a smart malware, it's not going to take 100% of the CPU power, and it's a touch panel. So, as long as it's working decent enough, like nobody cares.
Yeah.
Even when I come by, if I don't see it like smoking out of the sides, like I'm not going to think anything about it.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot that has to do just pretty much with AV in general, especially with
Hmm.
schools. Because my high school, or my any public school that I pretty much went to, they didn't really think twice about it. They just installed it and let it be.
Right.
Even though these things were essentially running the classroom, right? These smart boards, these projectors and things like that. And I remember, one of my favorite things was, um, there was a screen share option available on a projector. I can't remember exactly what it was. I was trying to look it up at the moment,
Yeah.
but it had a screen share open, and I shared an embarrassing image of one of
I'm
my
sure you did.
friends in front of everyone in my class, and it was just open. There was no password. It was just screen share, and that was something that was built into it. For everybody for the teacher to be able to do, right? But they didn't put any password. There's nothing on it.
Right.
Which is something that's just very interesting to me that kind of lacks, especially even in corporate situations. You can see that it just lacks when you go into certain places. It's just like it's open. I go to whenever I've done in interviews, for example, they'll just have like a system connected to their little projector or monitor or whatever they're setting up, and it's not secure. It's just they just plugged it in and called it a day.
Right.
And that just leads into a lot of more issues that doesn't need to happen.
Right. Exactly.
Now,
Yeah, and those things basically always lead to the default credentials and all that, just because they are just
admin.
plug and play. Exactly.
Right.
really strong password.
Yeah. Exactly.
No,
Well, and more. Sorry if I can jump in there. Even another thing is like, okay, doesn't necessarily need to be on the network, right?
right, exactly.
It's nice for people like myself to have a projector on the network because literally it can send you an email when it's about to explode or about to, have an error or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
It has an exploding error though.
yeah, no, it doesn't have. No, but there was one. I mean, I was looking at earlier this week that had an email, like you could connect it to an email server, and then you could have it send automated alerts of, oh, the lamp is at 50% of life, 25% life, right? Like you could set alerts that would automatically trigger, which would be really great. It's, oh, hey, time to replace the lamp. We got to go in here and do routine maintenance on it or whatever.
Yeah, it's
That's
not.
interesting.
But it's like, do you really need to have your projector on the network?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do I need to get emails from my
that's just,
projector?
you're really just making your attack surface larger for your bad guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting. I never. I mean, it makes sense. The idea of being able to be alerted for maintenance aspects, and if something does fail, but just leaving that open, it doesn't seem like a good option. Now, Tibbz, question for you: do you, working in the AV industry, right, and seeing all these problems, have you worked towards any fixes or, I guess you could say like hardening of the AV aspect?
Yeah, so whenever I see something that's concerning from a security standpoint, you always have to rate it, right? Of like, okay, is this, okay, this is kind of just smoking a little bit, or is, oh gosh, this is gonna burn the whole house down,
like priorities, exactly.
Yeah, right. Levels of risk.
Yep.
And so maybe something like, as stupid as it is and as easy it is to be like, oh my gosh, that's so dumb. An admin password, isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world. It's silly and it's easily correctable, but there are worse things. Like having firmware that's got a severe security vulnerability. Make sure to update that stuff. That's much more important. But yeah, I always try to, in any environment that I'm in, I always try to kind of bring an aspect of security to it, to make sure that, we're up to date. I'll do, as we always do, right? Update. So if I ever go into a room and I'm looking at the equipment, I'll make sure, is it up to date? And that's difficult sometimes because you oftentimes in corporate environments have pre-approved versions for things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is also kind of smart from a production and an operational standpoint. In these devices, certain versions that are newer won't always work better. We were literally advised by a company to to backlog or backdate our version one time
great.
because we were having a really, really crazy issue in like an executive conference room that is really, really expensive, right? And very, very important people who were working in here. And that was the only thing that was literally their resolution code was like, yep, just put it to 4.4 instead of 4.5.
Oh, that's weird. Do those kinds of systems do they handle that like easily? It's interesting that you can roll back with those things.
Hold on one second.
Yeah, no worries. But like for example, with the Roku stuff that I was doing before, which isn't exactly the same thing.
Rick rolling Rokus.
Yeah, exactly. When I was Rick rolling some Rokus, I realized that they do the firmware, upgrade, that's like the only option. It's just to push forward. And if I wanted to roll back, like the only way that I figured out how to roll back was to have like an old firmware and to man in the middle the HTTP request that served up the firmware to the Roku.
I
That's
remember
the
that.
only way I
Yeah.
actually was able to figure that out, which was like super weird. But it's a lot of these things I don't see them actually like setting up like these easy administrative tasks. Like they don't seem to make it easy for some reason.
No, and it goes for everybody, you know. It's like when people buy a piece of hardware, right? For example, like everybody's router, you know, if they don't know about security, for example, my aunt's, I set up her internet, right? And well, she was having issues, so I went there, and she just had the admin password as her for a router, and she has a ton of people who come over, you know,
Yeah.
and you know, I mean, obviously, she's not gonna have the aspect of somebody's probably not going to do that to her, right? Somebody's probably not going to
Right.
try
Maybe
and
that's
mess
not
with her
her
stuff.
threat model.
Exactly. But just that idea that, people don't really think about it. You know, even my school, my schools, the schools that I attended when I was in public school, they never thought about it. And even when I told them about it, even when I told their IT team, they just kind of blew it off like it was nothing, which is kind of surprising because you would think that they would do something about it, but they didn't really do anything about it.
Yeah. A lot of the times, like if it requires access to like, the LAN somehow, like you have like some sort of Wi-Fi password or what have you, then people just for some reason end up taking that as the trust boundary, like this castle and moat approach, if you will.
Yeah, exactly.
Super prevalent. So
Yeah, which that doesn't make any sense to me personally, but
yeah. It's definitely made way for the whole zero trust networking argument that's being made in enterprises right now,
yeah,
where even inside of the perimeter, the trusted boundaries, you still don't want to actually trust the network because networks have all sorts of nasty things on them,
Right.
whether it's like a pen tester or a malicious employee or what have you.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
trusting perimeters can be dangerous.
Yeah.
yes, it can be trusting. Trusting a lot of things can be dangerous, especially
True.
that admin or really strong password.
Yeah. One thing that I really wanted to talk about, so I know Nate started a new job today,
Oh,
and
That
I'm
is
super
correct.
excited for him. Tell us about it.
yeah.
Yeah, sure. So I work for a analyst company, or excuse me, cybersecurity company out of Ann Arbor. I am a SOC 1 analyst. Just started today, and yeah, I mean we do. So far, I got a cool few things, like some cool swag and stuff, which I think is really cool in
Yes.
the new tech industry. Right, you get a whole bunch of cool swag, get free food,
Right.
a really enjoyable. A really enjoyable environment where people, are willing to help you learn and are really driving
Yeah.
you to learn. But no, it's so far it's great as of right now. I'm just tuning up my logarithm skills or my
Right.
sim
Yeah. Because you were
skills.
doing a bunch of sims, right?
Yeah, Splunk, logarithm, and it's alien something. I can't remember exactly. I think it's tunes or something. I can't remember exactly, but I didn't get to that one yet. That's one I never actually worked with before. Um,
Yeah.
but I'm kind of excited because I get to learn some new ones. I've never had the chance to really mess around with Splunk, nor logarithm. Only one I've really worked with is Elasticsearch, and
Right.
it sounds like they do a little Elasticsearch, but more on their dev team. So I might just have to see about possibly
Get in their good graces. Yes.
exactly, yeah, and learning from them. But I really like it. It's really open, um, and I think it's gonna be a great job for me.
Yeah. Definitely. I'm really excited for you. I think that's
Thanks.
going to be an awesome opportunity.
Yes, and
Um.
especially with having developers there who are security focused and not just over a product, but over overall security, right? Because we essentially what we do is we change management. We change who gets this the what do I want to call it, or what's the word, the problem. I'm sorry. I'm skipping up on my
No way.
words, but
Okay.
the issue that we have, right? The log itself, right? Or
Sure.
the issue. We send it to like the SOC 2s or the SOC leads, and then once we get through all that whole program of who we have to send it to, whether they're there,
Mhm.
whether they can find the solution or not, then we end up sending it to our engineers, and then the engineers will end up actually going through and not only looking at the problem, figuring out what the problem is, analyzing it, right? Um,
Okay.
but also going through and fixing the problem, and being able to do that from a dev standpoint, right? So being able to fix it for the future for all systems, which I think is really cool, especially with having them in house, being able to learn from them. Because as many know, I'm not the most experienced coder, but I want to be. I want to learn a lot more. So I think that's going to be a great experience.
Yeah, experience will help with that for sure.
Oh yes,
Yeah, so basically just like escalating
yes,
the
that's what
different alerts that you find. Yeah, no worries. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's cool.
Yeah, no, it's excuse me. It's definitely pretty cool seeing, especially how, you know, being in college, right? Um, I didn't want to get an internship. I wanted to
Right.
go right into the field because I have bills to pay for, like everybody else, and I didn't want to take that risk, right? And I was almost to
Right.
that point where I was going to take that risk of finding an internship or doing the actual job, but I prefer to just kind of go right into the field. You know, I really want to get my hands and feet, everything about me. I just want to get nice and dirty. You know what I'm saying? And I want to get the
Right.
the stuff that a lot of people don't like, or people per se hold to a low standard. Kind of like how, you know, you say help desk, you know, is like the low
Mhm.
standard, right? Well, with SOC 1, it's like the low standard. And I would definitely wanted to see that aspect of, okay, instead of interning and shadowing somebody who's like a developer or somebody who's high up and doing a whole bunch of work, I'd rather actually be in, get to experience that really base level and then kind of work my way up and show progression. And
Yeah,
that's what I
definitely.
was able to find with this company. Was they it helped that I had a recommendation, but it was just the aspect that I was able to pretty much show exactly what I knew, and they took that into account, and they hired me, which I think is great. I love the kind
Yeah,
of fact
that's
that
awesome.
companies do that nowadays, and it's not
Yeah,
just
definitely.
based, you know, it's not just based on your degree or that paper you have. It's really based upon what you know. And I had a technical interview that was literally nothing but obviously technical, right?
Right.
And that's what they hired me based on, was the fact that I knew my stuff, not the fact that I didn't have any experience or I only had 2 years of IT experience. They hired me based upon the fact that I was able to take something that they gave me, right? They gave me a problem, and
Mhm.
I found a solution for it without asking for help from them. That was the whole
That's what you got
idea.
to do. You got to be able to, take the bull by the horns and just kind of
Google.
exactly,
Google,
exactly.
Google, Google. People don't understand. Google is the best thing man has made, man and woman has made. Okay? Google
Yeah.
is amazing.
Yeah, Google Foo is a skill set that, anyone, especially in IT, should, really get a hold of,
Absolutely.
really practice.
Yes. I mean, or you could practice, Google Tulip. That's a pretty cool one.
Google Tulip. I
Awesome.
haven't
Yes.
heard of this.
This is
I'm gonna
it is
Google it.
a you should. This is you talking
Oh
with
no,
a
I just see prank. Oh,
you pretty much just learn how to talk with tulips with sound waves. It's a full April Fool's joke. It's great.
it
Oh,
looks
Yes.
legit. They
It
they
does
really
look.
went for it with the picture.
They went for
man.
it. They have even
Wow.
the cloud image on their
Yeah, right.
gowns. Oh, it's beautiful. It's minty. I saw
That's
that last night.
minty. That's fantastic. I do love a good April Fool's prank.
Oh, it was. I was watching it last night, and I was thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, this is not real. Like looking at these computer screens, like they just show like these little sine waves and cosine waves, and I'm like, this is not right. So I Google it, and it says to be released on April 1st,
There it is.
and I was like,
Perfect. There's
beautiful,
the tip off.
beautiful,
It's dirty if they don't give you that tip off, though,
right?
Right.
And they make you think it's
And
real.
it's happened where I have been tricked.
Yes.
I don't know.
I feel
And
like
then I
that
was
could be
I
a
was
whole.
really tricked recently by the Boston Dynamics looking robot thing that ended up
Yeah.
being like just some YouTube edit. This is a couple months ago now.
Dude,
Yeah.
That really tricked me.
they had a few of those. They had the Boston Dynamics. They had a few different robots that came out that they showed that were not real, but they looked real.
Yeah.
They look really good. Yeah.
Like
There was actually-
even the actual real Boston Dynamics stuff is scary. Like the
It really
non-April Fool stuff.
Right?
Yeah,
Yes.
super Terminator-y.
It is. There was one where they showed the it was like in like combat training, and I didn't think it was. I thought it was real until I realized that they were just photoshopping him and the robot in there, because every time they would hit the robot, it would fall down, but it would like float. So I was like, okay, that's not real. Makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you speaking of kind of fake videos and stuff, but you know, kind of like prank videos, did you see the one, I think it was just going around Twitter today. It's a bunch, I think it's an advertisement for like a Swedish trucking company or something, and it's made to look like it's like 2,000 drones wired up to some very elaborate like circular multi-hoop based harness thing that lifts up a semi truck. So essentially it's like 200 or 2,000 drones working in unison theoretically to pick up this semi truck, and it looks very convincing.
Yeah, no, that's so crazy. Yeah. That's too much even for me. I'm not
Right.
tricked.
Interesting.
But maybe editing's good.
2,000 drones lifting a truck.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Scania. Yeah, or however you pronounce it.
Scania, yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. That doesn't seem like that would work, but hey.
I guess it's good marketing. I mean, we're talking about it. And,
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's somehow like the
500,000
Swedish trucking
views,
company
though.
got in here.
The EU. Oh, that's interesting though. 40-ton truck with 2,000 drones. I don't think that it's possible, but you know, hey, you never know. So
Yeah.
Tibbz. You know, I was asking you a little bit earlier about just today about being in the InfoSec community. You know, because you're in MySec. We see you all the time. We all roast each other. We all have fun, right? And you send the best memes. But
Yeah, he would be the king of the memes. in
yes,
my set.
King of the
for
memes.
sure.
He lived as he died, the king of the memes.
Exactly. But what is your goal for InfoSec? Like, you know, are you planning on getting into InfoSec? Because you're in the AV right now, right? AV
Right.
industry. Are you planning on getting into the InfoSec industry? Are you planning on doing anything having to do with that? Because you're so involved.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been wrestling with that a lot, honestly. Because for a while, you know, when I first started jumping in and kind of getting a little bit more obsessed with it, you know, I was like, oh, I gotta get in right now, and then I was like, you know, I'm in a good position right now, you know, where I'm at. Why not just, you know, kind of see where life takes you, you know. So I'm looking to get into information security eventually. If it happens soon, cool. If it doesn't, all right, that's cool. You know, I feel like there's always stuff to learn, and so I've been really trying to kind of soak up where I'm at right now. Which is like for me digging deeper into sort of more advanced audiovisual stuff, and then I'd love to apply deeper that sort of the security research aspect to audiovisual stuff. Like my dream job at the moment would be doing like security, like hardware security, or just generally like information security stuff for one of the major suppliers of audiovisual equipment, like Crestron, Extron, AMX, and a lot of these big names that are very, very popular.
Gotcha. So identifying all those weaknesses and then being able to basically make those products better because of your experience having, you know, found the vulnerabilities, et cetera, you know?
Right.
I smell a possible new project for Tibbz, you know?
I'm thinking so. Well, and I have the, you know, at this, the former contract that I was on, I didn't really have a lot of, stuff that I could necessarily get into the nitty gritty and kind of play with. And now I have a lot more devices that are maybe a little older, but I could still play around with, and kind of get my hands dirty. And I have kind of an ability to build myself a lab if I really wanted to. Now I just need the time. So
right, yeah, that's always the tough part, is figuring out how to like fit that in with everything else.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I figured out how to do it. I just I don't sleep. I maybe get 2 or 3 hours. It's a good solution. 2 or 3 hours of sleep.
Technology does that too. I think he drinks like 3 pots of coffee a day.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean that's mental health, not a thing.
Life hack.
Or physical health at that point.
Yeah,
Or
I mean
honestly.
physical health,
honestly, yeah,
health, not a thing.
yeah,
Just
true.
health gone.
Yes, but
That's cool. And then from like the like making a lab, would you be trying to then focus on like more of the software side of things, like trying to like find a shell on like get a shell on the Linux box that's like running the actual audiovisual thing
Yeah,
effectively?
I think that's what obviously I'd be looking to do is because I'm not super good with like hardware hacking. I'm pretty decent with electronics and sort of building little bits and bobs there, but I can't like necessarily fuzz, a circuit or something. But yeah, once I get sort of a test system set up, it'd be cool to see how I can exploit it and try to make it do something that's not supposed to do.
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, that sounds cool. Yeah, hardware hacking is very interesting. I have a new professor this year at Eastern, and this professor is he got his PhD in hardware security, and I walked through a whole. I kind of sat down and just let him kind of do a whole little spiel or presentation on hardware security, and honestly, he lost me after the second equation he threw up on the board
Oh no.
because it
He's throwing
started.
up equation.
Dude,
Oh no.
yes, it turned into. Honestly, that board looked like we were flying a rocket to the moon. I'm gonna be
Oh
honest.
no.
Rocket science?
Yes, it was
Oh
rocket
no.
science.
Hardware science.
Yeah,
Hardware
it's
rockets.
so I don't.
Yeah.
Rockets are hardware.
They are.
Yeah, it's so I mean I don't know. I'm interested to see if you do end up doing that, if it's relatively easy for the hardware hacking aspect, easier than obviously on paper or the whole um,
Yeah, the people that do learn
book
that
side.
stuff, like they do seem like wizards. Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
just honestly,
super
they'll
wizards.
be like, I'll just dump the whatever ROM off the chip or whatever, just plug and play all these things, and they can use oscillators. I don't know what an
Just
oscillator.
gonna
I don't know how to
desolder the
read that.
headers, and they just like you see the chip that they desoldered, and it's got like 120 little tiny prongs
Yeah.
on it, and you're like,
Exactly.
how?
Like, how did you do that?
Yeah,
I can
looked
I
at
can
the
wire up
schematic.
basic things, but that's a whole nother level.
Yes, yeah, that is correct. Oh,
Yeah, I feel very at home just on the software side personally.
Yeah.
Eventually, maybe I'll do hardware, but that's just not my forte quite yet. I just don't have the patience. I'm not. I'm too. Like I can't sit down and solder things. I've tried
Yeah.
before. It's just not my skill set.
I feel like for hardware stuff, you really have to get kind of lost in the sauce,
Yeah.
yeah,
you know,
lost in the sauce, baby.
lost in the sauce. Because like you, and I think everybody's familiar with that in like information security, or just not even not solely information security, but you get really driven for a project, and then you just get deeper and deeper and deeper, and then somebody
Right.
comes down and is like, "Hey, you haven't eaten in 12 hours," and you're like, "Oh yeah, that's cool. I should probably feed myself before I die."
Hey, remember, health is not a thing.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, those kinds of things are definitely like sort of the people that this community attracts for sure. Like those people that get like just deep into these things and just nerd out, obsessively for hours. I mean, that's effectively what CTFs are.
Right.
Yeah.
You just literally nerd out on this random problem another nerd made for you, and you just kind of go down the rabbit hole they set up for you. Eventually, you find the flag and you do the thing or whatever. But yeah, it's a lot of it comes down to just like pure patience.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
Well, and
sometimes.
like the determination to get through it and the perseverance for it.
Oh yeah.
Because a lot of
There's
times
so many times you just can't overcome it at first.
right. Well, or it's gonna take you a couple days to really have that the epiphany moment, the aha moment, right? Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Couple days. I've had it come back like months later, being like, "Oh dang it, that's what they were trying to make me do."
you like rush back to your computer.
Yeah.
I gotta go.
Try to find if I have it downloaded somewhere to do it.
Yeah. I had that with the CTF actually, for B-sides. There was one like was a video question that was really cool. And I'm like pretty new to CTFs and such anyway. And I think you downloaded a file that was in a .rtxz extension, and I was like, well, that sounds
Oh.
weird. But I was inspecting the contents of the file, and I was like, this looks like an MP4 file. And so then I just renamed it .mp4, and then it played a video, which had a QR code embedded into it, which led to a string of letters, which then also I think had some hex stuff in there too. But anyway, when you ran it through a ROT7 or something decoder, it gave you the flag.
It's the Da Vinci Code.
Yeah, probably.
That sounds just
that's
like
that's what it feels like when you saw
313
puzzle like
CTF
that.
challenge.
Yeah. I was going
it's just
through
like cyber chef.
amazing.
One thing leads to the next, then to the
Yeah.
next, then to the next, and then to the next.
Yeah.
Now, Tibbz, which place did you win?
We actually, so the meme team,
I love the name.
I created a team called We'll Hack for Memes because I'm unoriginal.
I love it.
And I knew I wasn't going to be able to play that much, but luckily Firemouth, I forget what his actual name is, but he was killing it. And then he ended up recruiting a number of other people, so they really kind of won it. But we ended up getting in fourth, which is kind of amazing for a team that was just kind of winging it and going for it.
Firemouth's name's Keith.
Keith, yeah, that's right. So big thank you to Keith. And I never caught the other two gentlemen who were helping us out, but they were just jumping right along as well. I think they ditched out by the end of the night, but yeah, we got fourth, which was kind of incredible.
That's impressive.
Because I guess, well, and then at Converge, which was my first like real CTF doing it, I think we got third. So
wow, okay.
Moral of the story is be teams with smart people because I didn't do anything. I'll tell you that much.
Now, what kind of things did you see at that CTF? Obviously, you were talking about some video, flag. What else did you find?
Yeah, they had a category that I really enjoyed, which I know some other people maybe weren't as big of a fan of, which I think I understand, but I think it was like history of B-sides or something like that. And like the first 3 or 4 questions were all themed around Motown, like just Motown in general. So it would be some Motown singer because like, you know, B-sides Detroit, like Detroit, right?
Exactly.
Motown.
Yep.
And it was some variation of a different like a Motown singer or Motown hit. And I don't know, it was just really captivating. It was just like a really good challenge. Like it wasn't too hard and it was worthwhile for the points. I can't remember what they were exactly, but it would basically be like some phrase that was, you know, the chorus of a song or the you know, the unknown name of a song, and then you Google search that, and then it would lead you to like a date, and then it would lead you, you know, it kind of leads you to another thing, and then you'd get the flag. I thought those were really cool.
That is cool.
It's almost like a OSINT sort of a CTF challenge in a way.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Hey, speaking about OSINT, Kent, you want to speak on your little OSINT investigation today?
Oh, all right. So, so we both go. We're all 3 of us are Eastern students, and or at least have emich.edu addresses. And there was a fish that went around today.
Oh,
yeah, it was like whatever. Like your account is
canceled.
Being canceled because you used it for something bad or something like that. It was like literally something along those lines. And then it had a link where like, if you were the owner of this account, which of course I am, you just told me that I'm the owner of this account and you disabled it or whatever. Click this link in the next 2 days. And, you know, obviously just a phishing attempts to try to get me to put in the credentials. But I thought that was kind of crafty because they were using, spoofed addresses, using no reply, and then using like totally invalid emich.edu addresses in the spam itself. And so a couple people got hit.
Wow,
my favorite thing was listen to the subject lining. You ready for this? It says, "We cancel your net ID."
Is that what the email says?
Yeah, that's what the subject
I didn't
says.
get it. I'm so bummed.
You
didn't get attacked.
Maybe it's in my spam because Google will actually filter out a lot of like spam emails
I was expecting it, but it didn't do it this time.
Wow.
What I'm trying to point here though is the terrible English. We cancel your net ID. That just come on, guys.
No, so yours was you cancel. Mine was we disconnect your net ID.
Wow.
Interesting. So
Oh
now
You're
my
being
they're
for a
god!
long
changing
time.
some stuff
All right,
here.
all right.
Okay.
So maybe we haven't verified any other people that got hit.
No, we
They're
have.
coming after the podcast, boys.
It might be.
So-
Yep, it's coming after us.
A lesson of this podcast, of what we're learning here is, dear phishing email malware campaign writers, run your content through our sponsor, Grammarly.com. Just kidding, they didn't sponsor us, but if I was a bad guy, I'd probably at least run it through Grammarly to.
Yeah, you might as well spell
terminate.
check your fish.
Yeah,
I mean,
you
you might
might,
as well.
man.
That
You
was
might as
great.
well do a little throw it in Microsoft Word or something, you know, a little Google Docs here and there, you know. But Grammarly will give
Right.
you better suggestions.
They will, yeah.
They
They're like,
will.
here, use this fancy word that'll give you get you a promotion.
Yeah, exactly. Their acronyms, or I'm sorry, their synonyms or whatever,
Interesting.
right in there.
So, you know what? On this topic of Grammarly, so today, as you know, I started my new job, excuse me. And we have Mac Pros for our desktop, right? And we went through with help desk, or the two other trainees and myself. And he goes, yeah, so if you install like Grammarly or anything that's not on the approved list, in about a week, the guy will come through and be like, wipe their box. And they'll just wipe the entire box no matter what.
Oh my god!
And it takes about 2 days for them to do
Wow.
that. Which, first
Wait,
of all,
so they have to physically
would
go
you
up
just-
to the box?
they have to physically reload the box. They
That's
literally,
interesting.
which I mean, okay, so I get the aspect that the IT help desk guy pretty much said to the other two, who were pretty much just starting off in the industry, and didn't have much experience at all. And he was like, they were like, well, why would they do that? And he goes, well, he goes around and does internal audits on everything every week, and if something's not right, he will make us reload it, and then they have to go through and reload the entire systems. He said that VPs, CEOs, big people had their systems redone, or yeah, deleted and started off. So, which is interesting, right? Because like, I mean, I get the aspect because it's a SOC, right? So we're dealing with customer information, confidential things that can't get out there, and we have to be secure before anything, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess
That's
makes
just
sense.
weird. Well, it's just weird that they're not using like a centralized software to do that. Like there are
That's what I was gonna
a
say. Yeah.
few different
Like deep
softwares
freeze.
that would allow you to like,
Right.
well, not deep
Maybe not
freeze,
deep
but
freeze,
like
but-
there's other like management softwares for Mac fleets that allow you
Yeah.
to like enforce, you know, disk encryption, you know,
Provision
reset the
patches.
password
Oh, yeah,
if it, you know,
yeah.
it's on the internet, stuff like that.
Right.
That's interesting that they'd actually physically go do that.
Yeah, I
But
thought it was
Whatever.
It's just, you know, I just something I thought of, but
Yeah.
we're gonna have to do some a little bit more OSINT investigation. Maybe do some burp suite on this URL that I got. See what.
Oh
it
yeah,
is.
I'd be all about it.
It's not giving me any information though, so we're gonna have
Run
to
it through Virus Total.
There we go.
Oh, we also want to compare our URLs too. Figure
That's
out what's
true.
going on with that.
Yeah.
All right, I'll open the Maltego doc.
There we go.
I do want to get into OSINT though. That was one of the things I was actually looking into
Well,
researching.
Really?
recently.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I
Because I
want to
have
myself,
a phishing link.
and I have a phishing email. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we could tag team that one. That'd be good.
That'd be exciting. Okay, sounds like a new project.
Because I feel like
Collab.
you see. Yeah, I know. I'm all about it. We could do a maker collab. You see all these videos about like OSINT, right? And talks about OSINT, but there's not a lot that are practical. And I think that's because of the nature of the information. Like you can't make a video of like, hey, this is how I found like, you know, information about this person, right? Because it could be naturally used for bad intentions, right? It could be used for like, oh, I'm gonna stalk my ex, or you know what I mean.
Right.
But those skills and knowing like the ins and outs of it, I think would be really valuable. So
Yeah, definitely. Being able to like, yeah, there's a lot of open source tools that are available. There's a lot of just like cool websites, like what is it, the T info or Twitter info thing, so you can go see like what devices people are tweeting from mostly. what time of days people are using Facebook, stuff like that. Like all those things like are, either leading or trailing indicators of how someone's living their life or doing things, and those are perfect avenues to learn more about someone and be able to use that information in a malicious way in theory.
Such as Cambridge Analytica.
Are you guys familiar with the OSINT framework as well? It's a pretty popular website, but
I'm a little familiar, yeah.
so it's, I mean, as it, it's basically a giant like family tree style tree, right? So it all stems out of one node called OSINT framework, and then there's some like, I don't know, 20 or 30 different categories that expand out to other links. So it's essentially kind of just almost like a tree of links that you can go to. But you can start here and then go to different areas like what you're looking for. So like if I was trying to find the username, right, and build a username profile across my mark, right, or whoever I'm searching, there's like, I'm looking here, you can expand that into username search engines, specific sites, right? And so there's all, like, what's my name check, instant name search, right? Like all these, some of these are paid, some of them are, free.
Yeah.
But it's a really, really popular site that I've used a number of times just to even look myself up and see what my digital footprint is, or like friends and family. That's kind of how I sort of, I guess, safely and not super creepily like practice OSINT. Maybe it is creepy though. I don't know, because then my, I don't know. Maybe I always wonder, like, is my like cousin getting notified that like I just spent 3 hours like finding every piece of information about them, just trying to sharpen my tools.
Yeah, it's interesting how a lot of those tools, like, they're never gonna get a notification. So it's might as well you do it, because
Right.
other people are probably doing it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely looked you up, Tibbz.
I mean, I've looked myself up and down.
I have too. I've looked myself up, and fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know which one's which, but you really have to kind of dig deep for me. I mean, because everything you
I found your Neopets.
Right.
Most
started
Can't hide from me.
Search the OSINT hunt.
Right. Well, most people just find my uncle or my great grandfather, because they have the exact same name as me. And
okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of like
the confusing.
Exactly. And I don't use my name. I mean, I said my name in here, but other than that, I usually don't say my name unless I meet you in person. So my name's usually pretty discreet. But now that it's not, probably people are gonna find me.
Yeah.
People are gonna be able to find me.
Canceled.
I just got canceled. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of tools, one of the tools I really like, so if there's like a organization that like you want to like, get a better idea of their like footprint on the internet, there's a really cool tool called Foca.
Okay.
And this is basically a scanner that you can use where you like put in like the main domain of, the thing you're interested in, going and finding, it'll go out and find documents and look at the metadata of all the things that are available online, like PDFs, Word documents, etc.
Is this the one you were working on?
And I wasn't working on this. This is a totally different people. 11th Paths, which I believe is an Italian security company.
Oh, okay.
Or software company or something along those lines. But they make the tool Foca, and it's a really fantastic tool and give you a really interesting idea of the various footprint, like, potential users that are there based on like the metadata from these documents. Like, Jane from accounting made this PDF and published it because they were told, for every quarterly thing, post this thing, right? Well, that metadata is great. You can figure out who, who's the secretary, or, who's the main account holder for whatever organization. Really interesting information that's just kind of hidden away in that metadata. So really good OSINT tool for sure.
You know what? Something I was looking at was the Subfinder that you're a part of. The Subfinder group.
Yes. I haven't worked on Subfinder in a little while here. But Subfinder, subdomain enumeration.
That's huge.
Definitely. Like bug bounties, pen testers use it. You can find really cool things like, the staging environment for an app, which might have more lax security than the production, but might have a shared API key, which, you can abuse somehow. Subdomain enumeration is a really good way to go about it. And there's a whole bunch of subdomain enumeration tools, whether it's Subfinder, etc. Like there's ones written in Python, Go, there's so many different ones that are available.
Yeah.
So another good way to go about getting more information, doing the initial kind of flyover effectively.
Which Tibbs, I don't know if you like watching videos when it comes to learning versus reading, but have you ever heard of Nullbyte?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
familiar with Nullbyte.
Yeah, they do. He does, excuse me, a lot of really cool videos on OSINT investigation. Um, at least that I found were interesting. I'll check them out.
Yeah, I was watching actually some of those when I was kind of starting to research some of that stuff there. I think Hackaday has a number of, maybe it was a Hackaday. There's a bunch of blogs like online though about like kind of going through the steps and starting points and sort of how to pivot through an investigation on someone, or like, not necessarily someone, but you know what I mean, to do open source intelligence
Right.
work.
You know what would be cool is if we did we should collab on that. Take like the same topic and see who can find more information on them.
Ooh, that's like a CTF, like
That's
a
a
challenge
really
CTF.
interesting
That'd be
idea.
really cool.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
See what we can, because I don't know much about OSINT investigation,
Right.
myself. So I think we should do something like that. That'd be cool.
Like a topic, or
Anything.
would it be like a
Maybe
person?
a person,
Sorry.
URL, website, topic,
Hmm.
Well, I think would be
organization.
it also, like, how would you score it? Like, how would you even verify some of that information?
How many
Like,
alerts does that
because I'm totally going to
organization
show up a bunch
like?
of fake information just to pretend that I know it's things.
Well,
I'm imagining like the sock for this poor organization is that we keep getting so many alerts. Our web traffic numbers have been spiking.
That's an interesting idea. That could be
That'd
a
be cool,
cool CTF or competition idea.
Yeah.
that too, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just thought it would be kind of cool, OSINT investigation. Something that I feel, not many people are, especially in school. Like I've noticed that we have a forensic analysis or forensic, forensic
Mhm.
analysis at school, and it's a newer class by a new professor, and a lot of people don't understand the OSINT investigation, how everything can have a meaning. People don't have that mentality of like, kind of like that video, right? You like, oh, okay, it looked like a video file, so then you switch it to MP4. Excuse me, it looked like an MP4 file, right? So you switch to MP4, and then you found out that it had a QR code embedded into it, and then you use that QR code to do something else, right? And a lot of people don't get that or have that mindset of one thing could lead into the next, then could lead into the next.
Yeah, if an organization is mostly a Windows, setup, then if you're an attacker for that on that organization, then you'll probably want to tailor your exploit towards Windows environments.
Exactly. Yeah.
So makes a lot of sense. You can definitely use all of that information against an organization in malicious ways.
Oh,
But
yeah.
from the flip side, obviously, from the blue team perspective, you can use all these tools to get an idea of what attackers can see inside of your organization from the inside out.
Exactly.
And then
So-
try to minimize that too. You can minimize your footprint outside. I mean, there's certain things obviously that you can't, right? But I feel like there's certain things that you can sort of do data cleanup and kind of tidiness.
Or one of my favorite things is just, well, if people are going to be looking for those things, hackers are typically lazy, so you can leave those low-hanging fruits.
Yeah.
Basically, like leave fake, organization members and things along those lines.
Oh.
So there's some interesting things you can do to leave kind of like tripwires for attackers. Very
Honeypots.
uncommon, but honeypots are a really good technique in some cases.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah, so like maybe I put some metadata documents on the web server, and if someone runs FOCA and gets those credentials, like they went out of their way to try to attack my organization. So I want to catch if they try to use those credentials, and if they do, then I know someone tried to do something. Maybe I can correlate an IP if they're got lazy during the pen test or something along those lines.
Right. Well, and then it can of course trigger an alert, and you can kind of have a heightened sense of security maybe then.
Exactly.
So this isn't your standard, okay, somebody's scanning, this is like somebody's
going a little
actively
bit more
trying to
in
go.
depth to try to attack, us.
Right.
However we set it up.
Yeah.
So yeah, those kinds of things are cool.
Yeah, speaking on that, hackers being lazy, there was this one, this DEF CON talk, I believe it was, where it was some yeah, I don't believe it was U.S. Marshals or you just maybe FBI agents or one of the big three, more than likely. I can't remember exactly, but
Okay.
the way they ended up catching this guy, right, who ended up extorting a whole bunch of money through the Russian government and through other countries, and doing it through small businesses within the United States. So he essentially was money laundering. I don't remember exactly how, but it was through some small businesses in the United States. And was just reroute. I actually, you know what? That's what it was. They were rerouting. He was rerouting bank information. So whenever somebody would enter a credit card or they would transfer any money, he was rerouting it to a whole bunch of different accounts and then sending it back to Russia. And the way this guy ended up getting caught, right, was, or actually prosecuted, was because his password was the same password of his username or handle that he used.
Oh, well, that's just bad.
Which is
practice.
just such bad practice. But I thought it was cool, just the aspect of you saying the laziness. It's like that
Right.
defines it right there, How I can't remember that.
Yeah, right. That's interesting. Yeah. Well, it's like, you see that all the time of they'll hang them up on anything that they can if it's like a really big criminal or somebody, right? Like what was it? Was it, I don't know, El Chapo or Capone or something? I don't know. They got the tax fraud, right?
Yeah, it seems like
Tax
the
evasion or something.
mafia.
Yeah, right.
Cartels.
Yep.
Yes, for sure. It's very interesting for sure.
Well, thank you very much for being on the podcast, Tibbz. We're definitely going to try to have you on again.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
Yes,
Yeah.
Tibbz. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for coming on, especially with such short notice and making your time out of your
sure.
day. And you know what? Before we do leave, I do want to shout out to Tibbz. You did make this background, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
I made a bunch of MySec kind of logo backgrounds.
So I wanted to shout out Tibbz for making my new desktop background because
There we
it's pretty
go.
sick.
I got a bunch of other ones, so if there's, I think I've thrown them up on the Slack, but if you want any of them, just let me know and I'll shoot them over to you. They're free for anybody to use, so.
Well, we
Awesome.
appreciate it. Thanks for sponsoring our first little podcast.
Awesome.
My pleasure.
Alrighty, well that concludes it. Maybe we'll